Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new fantastic edition of DialogBOX. I'm your host, Laughingboy LP. It has been quite some time since the last time I've done one of these. I'm hiding OBS now that it's all started because I just want to save the space on my computer because it is chugging. If you're new to the show, it's been a while. I did one episode back in January. We skipped February. We're back in March. I'm trying to do one a month, whatever. We like to talk about video games around here. We talk about all kinds of different video game topics as well as content creation topics. So hopefully you guys will enjoy listening to us chime about video games. I have two very lovely guests here tonight. Both Nintendo ambassadors, both Twitch streamers, both YouTube content creators. You can find them at their respective channels. We have AlecandStuff. Hello.
Hello, sir.
And we also have NintendoFanGirl. Hi.
Hi. It sounds like we're actually the same person. I was actually going to say, when you mentioned that you took a little break in February, I was like, that was because it was mine and Alex's birthday.
Yes, I couldn't stream.
Our birthday month.
I spent the entire month celebrating their birthday. So.
Yeah.
I think it's the same week, too, right?
Yeah, it's like 2 days
apart.
apart.
It is. Yeah.
Wow. Is it the same year?
No.
Okay.
We talked about this before.
I'm a lot older.
I wouldn't say a lot older. Come on, give yourself some credit.
I am a plural number of years older.
Well, there you go. That's more than at least one.
Yeah.
Yes.
A lot. A great deal. More than one by a bunch. No, age is only how you feel.
Unfortunately. I feel old
And I
too.
feel old. And I feel very, very old.
I'm with you there.
You know what else is old? The Nintendo Switch.
That's
So
true.
old.
Yeah, that is the best segue I've
Kindergarten
ever done
age
in this
almost.
entire show. I've done 35 episodes. I think I can't top that. It's 5 years old. It is basically a grandparent at this point.
Yeah.
3DS. The 3DS is
Well,
grandparent.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like dog years. What are console years?
Yeah, what
They've
are
got to
console
be
years
like
to a
20, right? No.
I think
Yeah.
every year is like 20 years
15.
for a console. Yeah.
15 to 20, somewhere
15.
in that range.
Well, and just like dog years, the smaller systems have a longer shelf life, so they actually last a little bit longer than the larger consoles.
Those dogs and their shelf lives.
Yeah. I mean, have you ever bought a shelf-used dog? Anyway, the topic tonight is about the Nintendo Switch. It's 5 years ago, in March. So I'm still actually on topic. I managed to do it this time.
Very nice.
A little system that was going to change the face of gaming. Nintendo decided, what if you could take the games with you? And Sony was like, that's what we've been trying to fucking do for like 5 years with the Vita. And Nintendo's like, but what if we did it? And then it actually was far more successful than the Vita ever was. I'm very sad about that. But anyway, we are going to talk a little bit about the Switch, our experiences with the Switch. We'll talk about some of the topics that have come up about the Switch over the last 5 years. We'll talk about Nintendo's foray into really, not even dipping their toes anymore, just trying to get into the online space. We'll talk about the Switch Pro rumors and things like that and why they continue to persist even to today. And then we'll talk about what we don't like about the Switch, what we kind of want to see in the future, what the Switch means for Nintendo for the future. I'm just going to check OBS real quick to make sure that you guys are even coming up. Yeah, I think you are. Say something real quick.
Hello.
Yeah, there we go. Yep. All right. Making sure the audio is working because I didn't want to talk to myself for 20 minutes. Anyway, I've done it. It's
I have too.
even when I'm not streaming. So first off, let's talk about our experiences with the Switch so far. What did we think about this system before launch? Like, we saw the trailer back in 2016. I want to say mid 2016 or late 2016. I'm pretty sure it was
October.
before the election.
It was October 2016.
Yeah. How did you guys feel about the Switch and your initial impressions with it before it even came out and you actually had one in your hands? What did you think that this thing was going to be like?
I think for me, it's kind of okay. First of all, I have the worst memory ever, so thanks
Same.
for having me on for this.
Uh-huh.
But I think for me, I was so taken at the time with Breath of the Wild coming out soon that I was just like, yep, I want to play Breath of the Wild on that. Like, I'm ready. But also, like, there's no question that from a game release standpoint, the Wii U was not doing super hot. And so I was like really ready for like a little bit of a reset to happen, no matter what it was going to be. I just wanted like to kind of, I love the Wii U, don't get me wrong, but I just wanted to kind of move on and like have, from even a marketing point of view, a reset on Nintendo's front. And that felt like when it was going to happen.
Money. Nice.
I thought your initial impressions was just money.
No.
Nintendo
Money.
will make money.
It'll make
That
a lot
was
of money.
part of it because everyone was like, "How much is this thing gonna cost?" But,
Well, yeah.
no, I think my initial impression was just overall mystification, you know, because there was a lot of questions after seeing that ad. That first original ad was maybe what, like 2 minutes tops.
Mm-hmm.
It was very short. But I do remember watching it and being like, wow, what does this mean then? It's like, we'll be getting third-party support again in waves like we did like in years past? Or what does this mean for Mario? Are we going to get any Mario games? There's going to be any compromises as far as performance and stuff like that goes? What the heck does this mean? Is Zelda Breath of the Wild still coming to Wii U? Like, there was a lot of just really, now that I look back at it, very innocent questions back at the time. But I think overall my impression was it was just very positive. It was something like we really hadn't seen done to the same degree in the past before it.
Yeah.
And it was really cool to see, you know, even if it was just a marketing video, what this thing would actually do in the hands of players. And I feel like I am justified enough to say at this point that it translated over pretty well. I think the marketing was not really, there was no smoke and mirrors going on there. It was just kind of the experience that you got when you open the box. So 5 years later, that's how I feel.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point to say because I think the Wii U's marketing was just so bad. I think even internationally, like Nintendo and the people that were watching these ads and watching the trailers for it, like we knew what the Wii U was. It was essentially, I think looking back on it, I almost kind of say like the Wii U is like a half step, but it was this idea that like you don't need the TV to play games, but you can always do so if you want to. And it was nice to have that, or you can use it as a fifth controller. But there were so many things that the gamepad could do, and they focused so much on that viewers or consumers were kind of confused as to, are you selling us the Nintendo Wii U as a console, or are you selling the gamepad? Because I think that was always their problem was, I think I even remember a news article or a news story about the Wii U before it came out, and they didn't have the system. They only had the gamepad. That was how Nintendo apparently wanted to brand this thing, or that was how like these different news stations were kind of interpreting it. So clearly there was a disconnect between what Nintendo wanted to sell you on and what it was that we thought we were buying. I mean, as Nintendo people, we kind of knew what we were buying, but as John Q. Public, people who had bought the Wii, since the Wii had such like a huge install base, it was completely different from anything we'd seen from Nintendo at the time. Those people did not understand what the Wii U was about. And I think it's very clear what the Switch is about. I mean, a new name was very important. I think being able to really see that 2-minute video of people literally doing the same thing over and over. You put it in, it plays on the TV. You take it out, it plays on a handheld. It's simple. The Joy-Cons do stuff. It's great. My fiance like always remembers this Instagram joke of the lady at the rooftop party who brought her Switch with her, and it's just kind of like
the rooftop.
Oh God,
Switch.
Diane's back with her Switch. We're having conversations here, Diane. We're trying to have fun.
That's me. Show up
I'm
like,
dying.
here you go. Switch time.
Look, Switch is like my favorite safety blanket. Like, if I'm going somewhere, I will take it with me just because I don't know what I'm about to do. And maybe I need it while I pet
never
the
know.
dog in the corner.
Yeah.
So on top of that, I guess personally, like, and we even remember seeing the Mario footage that was in that teaser.
Exactly.
And people were just kind of like, wait a minute, a Mario game? I mean, we kind of
I was
assumed
kind of
one
on
would
the
happen,
fence.
but
I thought it was a tech demo at first, and I was
Yeah.
like, no, this looks a little
Right.
a little bit more involved than a tech demo. I don't know. So I was kind of flip-flopping on that one for a while.
yeah, Dia de los Mario.
I've been burned by a Zelda tech demo in the past before, and I knew to be cautiously
Yep.
optimistic about that.
That's actually a strange
Exactly.
thing too, because like I've been burned 3 times by a Zelda tech demo. I think we had one on the Wii U, we had one on the GameCube, and then
Wasn't there one on the 64 like years and years ago?
well, there was one on the 64, but that was like you could say very, very, very like alpha Ocarina of Time, because it's him fighting the
okay.
Stalfos, right?
Yeah, it's like
Mm.
it looks different, but I guess you're right.
Yeah.
Probably.
I mean, he looks
Probably
more
really
like
early.
his older drawings, like before Ocarina of Time made him very handsome. He looked like a Disney character.
Ooh.
So
Yeah.
once you actually had the system in your hands, how did you feel about it? Did it work out for you? What?
I'm laughing because I have this. Sorry. Whenever I got the system in my hands, the first thing I did was dance with it in the parking lot. Okay, that's what I
With
did.
the box or with the
Um,
system?
With the box and my big old special edition Zelda box. So
Oh,
it was,
yeah.
2 big
Oh, the
boxes in my
big one,
hand.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
big
I
boy.
set it to some remix of Reggie saying "My body is ready." So that is my first reaction with the Switch, and I still feel like I have the same sort of energy towards it. Very, very positive. And it almost kind of felt unbelievable, like whenever you boot up the system for the first time and you stuck the cartridge in, and I just had Zelda in my hands. It was weird. It was so weird. I go back and watch I filmed my reaction to it for the first time years and years ago, and every now and then I'll go back and watch it and I'll be like, that was so cool. I wish I could relive that moment again. That was just amazing. Just to see it like work in your hands like that. It was awesome.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to play the Switch a couple times before it came out, so to my recollection, very shortly after that trailer launched, there was an event in New York City that I got to go to, and that was my first time being hands-on with it. And what I distinctly remember was playing Splatoon 2, and my brain, since I had been playing Splatoon 1 on the Wii U,
Yeah.
my brain had not quite registered the fact that you don't have a TV screen and your handheld screen.
Yeah.
So like I was like looking back and forth. I was confused. I would try and touch the screen. That was the first thing I ever played on the Switch, and that was I think when I really realized like this is not a new Wii U. This cannot be thought of as a new Wii U. Like the days of 2 screens are not here right now. Maybe they'll come back, but I really love that. And then I also got to go to a 1-2 Switch launch thing. That's
Oh,
the best way
nice.
I know how to describe it. It might have been for the Switch overall, but I think the highlight was 1-2 Switch, and there were like Nintendo executives there demoing it with us. And the only reason I remember that it was before the Switch came out was because it was at Nintendo New York, and all of the line was there. Like those poor people waiting outside had to watch us play inside.
Yeah.
And the hype was like real at that point in time. But I was really happy with it. I remember the first time I felt HD Rumble with the 1-2 Switch. Ended up being maybe a slightly underwhelming game, but I was so impressed with the Joy-Cons at the time.
And I think so. I was in a similar event in January, I want to say. It was either December or January. And it was a couple of months before the system came out. and I literally went to like a warehouse, over by like in DC.
That's when it was. It was
Sounds
after the
sketchy.
Zelda trailer.
Yeah,
It was mid-January. It was the Zelda trailer, and then the next day I got the invite.
yeah, and it's weird because like I'm not an ambassador of any sort, and yet I still got the hey, come on down. So I don't know how they got that information about me.
No complaints.
No, absolutely none
Just take it.
whatsoever. We went,
free, do it again.
and then I still have pictures from that event, except they're all on my phone right now. But so we went, and they had Splatoon 2, they had Mario Kart 8, they had Zelda, which you had to get a ticket in order to get in. So you had to actually like get a ticket, and it tells you the time you come back and you play it. It's kind of like PAX. And then they had ARMS, and they had 1-2-Switch. And actually, if you went to the 1-2-Switch booth, they were filming reel for their ads. And I think if you watch it for like a split second, you can see my arm. But I made $20, so and I was unemployed at the time. Yeah, I can't even remember the YouTube video anymore. But yeah, there's like one where you can just like barely see my arm on the side. And I was like, yeah, that's me. That's proof that I was there. But playing Splatoon, like you were saying, there were some issues because the buttons got reversed on some commands. But
I don't even remember.
the fact that, because in that booth, we were all at our own console. That was handheld mode station.
Right.
So we were all in handheld mode.
That's why it was like a little confusing for me.
Well, and I think they had a spectator mode, which I don't think they ever actually like released for the game, but they had a spectator mode in that booth so that you could watch everyone play. And that was the first thing I did when I got there, and I was so impressed because I was like, I have everything here that I need. Like, I have the gyro controls. I think I was a little concerned that the L, Z, and L buttons were like super small and close together. But I think overall, I was just super impressed. Being able to play tabletop mode with Mario Kart was fun. But it's weird because like they put you on an airplane to play Mario Kart 8. That was their booth.
Yeah.
And they even gave you like the little trays for your food.
I don't remember that. That might have been.
Yeah, there was like so like you
detailed.
would sit in the seat, and they had a little tray that was the seat in front of you, and you would play Mario Kart using the tabletop mode. And I was kind of like, this is cool, but you can't use the Joy-Cons in tabletop mode if you have airplane mode on. So technically, it was a neat idea, but the scenario would never happen. So like, I would just be sitting there like, okay.
Can you not do that?
I don't think I realized that. I don't
You
think
can't
I've ever
detach
tried.
the Joy-Cons when you're in airplane mode because it uses Bluetooth. They don't want you to do that.
I never tried.
I don't.
I think
That
I only
seems so
remember
specific.
doing
I
it
don't
once
think I've tried
because I wanted to take them off. My very first flight was to PAX East with the Switch, and I wanted to use the Joy-Cons off the system and just have it like I saw in the place that I was at. And they're like, no.
And they were like, no,
can't do
you
that.
can't do that.
No. You
I
can't use
remember,
wireless
though,
controllers.
a huge point of contention before people got hands-on with the Switch was the size of or maybe after, was the size of the Joy-Cons. Because people were like, no, like, they're too small for my giant hands.
Oh, yeah,
and
I've got
then I finally, like, got one in my hand, and I was like, yeah, I'm good with this. I got small hands.
Yeah,
It gives me bad cramps after a couple hours, but otherwise I'm okay.
Yeah, I have not, like, one of the big selling points was like, oh, you could play with just one Joy-Con, and I haven't needed to do that. So that's a plus for me.
Needed or wanted to do that.
I mean,
Say
that's
it,
like
yeah.
the joys of tabletop mode, I guess, is to use the Joy-Cons like NES controllers, but yeah, I haven't really used it all that much.
I will literally bring multiple sets of Joy-Cons or Pro controllers
Yeah, I'll do that.
to places
me
if
too.
I have to.
Yep. Yeah, so that was a really cool event, and then that actually made me really enjoy ARMS, and then I played the demo, and I was like, I don't like this anymore. That's my only
Wow.
experience with ARMS. So
Interesting.
I'm assuming we all bought one at launch.
Correct.
I did.
Yep.
Correct.
I think I had someone find one for me at the time, and they managed to get a Switch and the Big Boy Zelda box. So
Which one? Special edition or master edition?
Not master edition. It was special because I don't have the master sword statue, but I have the Sheikah tablet carrying case.
I hate myself for it every day.
I have the master edition, but if I like what okay, so you know how hard those pre-orders were to get for the
Mhm.
master
They were
edition.
very hard.
I
yeah.
was stalking the internet right after that E3, like right when those pre-orders were going up, and I hadn't slept in like 3 days, and finally I was like, I need to take a shower, and while I was in the shower,
Were you stalking it so hard you weren't showering?
no, it's just like I need to I haven't slept. I need to like reset somehow, and take a cold shower. So I did, and so while I was in the shower, the Best Buy, which was like the last one to go up, went live, and I missed it. And I got out of the shower and I cried because I missed it. And then somebody on Twitter hooked me up. So thank goodness for that person who got 2 pre-orders. So I did end up getting the master edition after days of stress for this one stupid pre-order.
Days of stress and no showering.
It's true. E3 times are difficult times.
Yeah.
Exactly.
For content creators, for the record.
Gotta get the pre-orders in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's the pre-orders, and I have to also say something about it. Like, I have to have my thoughts and impressions immediately after the trailer airs.
Yeah, forget it if you're actually at the event, because then I had to be there filming it while also trying to do all this other stuff.
I swear the video will be out in like 8 hours. I have to get back to my hotel room. Yeah.
Yep.
We don't get to enjoy E3. We just get to live it.
I enjoyed the idea of E3, and then it comes here and it's just stress for a week straight.
Well, and I was reminded of
rom-com.
Yeah, I mean, I was reminded of the last E3 I went to, which was the Let's Go Pikachu Eevee E3 and the Smash E3.
Yep.
And I only say the Pikachu one first because I was in that line for like 2-3 hours. That was during the time when they were like, okay, cool people, media, press, all those people get to go in like several hours before general public does. And I spent that entire time in the line. And so by the time we had almost gotten all the way through the line, the general public started coming in, and you could see the entire area just like starting to become a little bit claustrophobic, which nowadays would be very stress-inducing, but back then it was just kind of annoying.
That'll be PAX East this year.
Yeah, probably.
No, I think it'll be less crowded.
I think it'll be less crowded.
It's no E3, but
right.
I get what you mean.
It's a weird give and take thing because like I know fewer people are probably going to go in general, but I also know more people are coming because they're not going to South anymore. So
yeah, that's
South
true.
not happening.
South is dead.
Gone.
Yeah, it's gone.
Didn't know that. R.I.P.
Yep.
At least indefinitely. Never say never.
That sounds pretty fine.
That sounds pretty definite. But...
I'm no longer alive indefinitely.
Right.
Never say never.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
So let's move on. So one of the things that happened as soon as it launched, maybe like I don't even think it actually occurred at launch, but they unveiled their Nintendo Switch Online program a little bit into the life of the Switch, very shortly after, because I know they had to have it ready in time for Splatoon 2, and Mario Kart, I suppose. So Nintendo started beginning its Divisible online service. What was your experience with it at the time? And remember when it was free? How was that period of time for y'all?
I'm trying really hard to remember specifically. It was after Splatoon launched, wasn't it?
And that's the thing. I don't remember.
I feel like it was free for a period of time after Splatoon launched, but they said you are going to have to pay for this at a point.
Yeah.
FYI. Something like that. I really don't remember.
I think they announced it in a direct. It wasn't during... I can't remember if they announced it during the direct or if they announced it during that February stream right before the Switch launched. And they had talked about
after the launch.
NSO will be free at the start. You will have to pay for this. And I think at the time it was a 6-month time frame. They were only going to make it free for 6 months. And that 6 months became like 2 years, I think.
That sounds familiar to me.
like a year and a half at least, because I think they waited until after Smash Brothers.
Oh, I think that is what it coincided with. Now that you mention it, I don't remember the exact time frame. I do remember even after it was launched, and like I'm a known Nintendo apologist, but I was really not really off put by the $20 a year. I wasn't really off put by paying in general, and my thought process was basically as long as I'm getting something out of it, and I wasn't surprised either. I guess I did kind of think that we'd be getting more of something robust with it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I'm a big fan of like Xbox Live's avatar system and a lot of their party features, and I wish we would have something like that with the Switch. But at the end of the day, I wasn't really upset or surprised by $20 a year. I also, in the back of my head, are going, okay, well, they're doing that because they're new. It's like introductory pricing, like when Netflix was super cheap. And so, is there a point in time where it's going to not be even close to $20 a year? Probably.
Narrator. Yeah.
It did.
But I don't know, and I'm happy with the NES and the SNES games that we've gotten. So, to me, it's been a decent value.
I think for me, I try to look at it logically. At the time, you had PlayStation Plus. So let's turn back the clock a bit to like 2013, I think. And PlayStation has always had an online service, but then they started announcing PlayStation Plus. And with PlayStation Plus, they were like, okay, for, I think it was at the time, $50 a year. And they said for $50 a year, you still get free online multiplayer. That doesn't change. All games were still free to play online. But we'll give you like cloud saves. We'll give you like special bonuses. We'll give you free games every month. Like, and this is Sony in last place at the time. Nintendo was like all the way up here with the Wii, and so it was really just 360 and PS3 battling it out. And PS3 at the bottom was trying to get people into their whatever it is that they were trying to sell you on. So they gave you a lot as kind of a please buy a PS3. And then as soon as they started getting more people on board, especially by the time the PS4 came out, they were like, all right, bump up the price by $10 a year. So it's $60 a year. And we're going to force you to buy it in order to do the online stuff. And so looking at that, looking at what Xbox had been doing for years, and looking at what Nintendo had planned to do with NSO, it was like, all right, I can kind of see, because NSO is kind of like, all right, it's free for some games if the game says it's free, because I don't think you need NSO for Fortnite. But for
that's like the one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and Unite.
I'm curious about whether Fall Guys will. I want to know how that goes.
It has to come out first. Let's dunk on him
it first.
Listen, I have a hunch that it's coming really soon. Well,
I want
partially
it to come
because
out soon.
they said it was coming really soon, but one of the big tournaments at PAX East is Fall Guys.
It'd be a good time
Wouldn't
to
that
talk
be
about
a
it.
really nice time for a certain media announcement?
Balls in your court.
It's not just Nintendo; it's also Xbox. So
Yeah.
there's like a good amount to be gained by
It was
finally releasing it.
Right.
It was Steam and PlayStation for the longest time, and it was great on PlayStation because you didn't get all the cheaters. So with NSO, I kind of saw that as like, wow, it does everything PlayStation Plus does for a third of the cost per year. That's not bad. And it does something that PlayStation Plus doesn't do, which instead of like the free games that PlayStation Plus was giving out every month, it was giving me Virtual Console at the cost of NSO. So as somebody who had been through the Wii U kerfuffle of like, all right, pay us $2 more and we'll give you the same game you bought on Wii U on the Wii on Wii U rather. This was, I guess, a nicer solution. It means I don't really get to own the NES and Super NES games that are on the Switch, but I think for what it is, it's at least logically speaking, a good idea moving forward, so that with hope, that the next system after the Switch, we won't be starting over again. It really comes down to licensing agreements, unfortunately, but at least it's not an issue of, well, we didn't make it yet. So, I mean, we'll see how this works out, but my initial thoughts on NSO were like, all right, for $20, I get what I'm already getting with PlayStation, but I have a much bigger friends list too. And so I think you just kind of get out what you put in. And to this day, I play multiplayer far more often on my Switch than I do on my PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
So my initial thoughts were, it's fine. I think same as you, Sam. I was just like, okay, like I expected this, but for the cost, okay, I'll deal with. Alec, how about you?
I'll do it.
I think kind of like Sam, I'm the kind of person that Nintendo Twitter fans probably hate. But
That's a
whenever
clickbait headline.
Yeah,
Nintendo
whenever
Twitter hates this guy.
Twitter hates this guy.
Twitter hates it. Nintendo. But whenever the price was revealed at $20 a year, I was the kind of person that was like, well, on the one hand, I get why some people would be upset because it's not like the service is getting better because I'm paying for it, right? As far as I can tell, it's largely stayed the same. But on the other hand, I kind of thought of it like gas prices and stuff. I was like, I don't really know if it matters what the price is to me as much, as long as it's not absorbent. Because what am I going to do? Not pay for gas? What am I going to do? Not get Switch Online? Like, are you kidding me?
The defeatist
Right.
attitude, yeah.
Right? So I was kind of like, well, I mean, $20 is pretty cheap, all things considered. And for the entire year, I mean, I pay that much for Xbox Live over the course of 2 months. So, I was like, fine, whatever. And say what you will about the performance of the online and stuff. I haven't really had too many issues with it ever since I got an Ethernet cable.
Yeah.
Because I do remember before that, when I would play Splatoon online and stuff over Wi-Fi, it was kind of a toss-up on whether or not I would stay connected to the match. I don't know if that was my Wi-Fi doing that or if it was Nintendo's infrastructure. It's kind of beyond me at that point. But all I know is ever since 2017-ish, 2018, whenever I got my Ethernet, I've had 0 issues. So,
yeah.
I
also have no issues.
Yeah, so I've had a pretty overall positive experience with Switch Online, even going back to just its initial launch and price reveal and stuff like that. I remember back in the time, because I was streaming back then too, albeit on YouTube, and people would be like, what? It's so crazy, like Switch Online stinks, right? And I'd be like, no, I mean, it's fine. You can see it live
it's
here.
fine.
Like we're having no issues. Like I don't know. I've
I'm
always
using
been the
it
kind
right
of person
now.
that's I unapologetically deal with it. Right?
Yeah.
But I'm
Same.
not like a huge. It's great. It could be better. Like Sam was saying, like party systems and invites for every game and things like that are pretty common for other online
Achievements.
services.
Yeah.
Achievements would be freaking awesome, but it's not like it impacts my overall enjoyment of the game either. So who am I to complain?
Well, I guess personally speaking, over time, I have less and less cared about achievement systems. Like, they're neat.
I still care.
I kind of do sometimes.
I mean, it's nice to get that little kudos, I guess. And sometimes we talk about whether or not, like, there are some games that I will platinum depending on how much I like them and how easy the platinums are to get. Talking from, like, a PlayStation perspective. But overall, I'm just kind of like, I have too many games. So, like, as far as I'm concerned, once I beat it, whatever trophies I get, that's cool. But I don't miss them on the Switch, I guess. And on top of that, I guess I noticed with Splatoon, I didn't really have too many connection issues. It was Smash Brothers, I think, where I started to see them a lot. And I don't know what that was. If it was just people who were really interested in Smash suddenly getting Switches, and they just don't have good internet. Some people blame Nintendo's netcode. Some people blame like the Switch using Wi-Fi. But like I've used Wi-Fi since the beginning. I even have the OLED, which has the Ethernet port hardwired into the system, and I just haven't used it. But I've never really found much of an issue. Only with with the exceptions of Smash Brothers and the N64 service. I have found issues with that one constantly, but I haven't really. I think I've been disconnected once using the NSO system. What about the expansion pack? Because it seemed like people's main complaint was, all right, if they're going to charge us for this, then they should fix the service, which it doesn't. It sounds like they are finally starting to fix it. But in the middle of all that, they're like, what if we charged you more? And then they decided to release the expansion pack. What was your initial reactions to the expansion pack? Was it still the same as like, oh, I guess I'll pay for it? Or was there some pushback? Or were you pleased with what they were offering in the expansion?
I'm still an apologist for Nintendo. But I mean, so I think I was surprised over how upset a lot of people got. To me, the price jump for this upgrade, well, first of all, it's an unnecessary upgrade. So if you want to continue playing online, there's no benefit unless you want the games. But so anyway, I was a little surprised how upset a lot of people seem to get over a $50 a year price tag, considering that's essentially what you'd be paying with Xbox or PlayStation. Not to mention, we pay way more than that for like Netflix or HBO or whatever. But anyway, tangent. I was a little surprised by that because in my head, even excluding at the time, all we knew about was the free Animal Crossing DLC, which I certainly would have paid for anyway. So that's $25 a year. Even excluding that, having access just to a handful of N64 games with a promise of more in the future, I was all in. Like from like $30 a year extra, great. I share a family membership, so I technically am paying $40 a year for all of the above. $20 to upgrade essentially.
Yeah.
So I mean, for me, I was like, I'm not off put by the price since it's less than I'm paying for other services, A. And B, I'm really happy to have those N64 games. The free DLC is a good bonus. And now we know about Mario Kart too, Mario Kart DLC. I'm getting my money's worth.
Right.
Yeah, I think my initial concerns were this is something that I think at its launch date was not necessarily a good deal, but you have to kind of see it, the forest for the trees, I suppose, and you understand that like if this is what I think they're doing, then Nintendo is going to release their expansions in the expansion pack, and we're going to start either charging you for it or you get it for free if you have the subscription. And already, I would say, I've made my money back, like already. So for the additional cost with the 2 expansions that I already would have bought normally, and consider if you do have a family plan, which costs more for the family plan, but you're splitting that cost, I would hope. And with that split cost, you have other people buying those things. If I have 7 people on my family plan, which it's either 7 or 8 is the max.
Yep.
And all of them bought just the Animal Crossing DLC, Nintendo kind of loses money in that situation. Because if we all bought it, and I know this is all hypothetical stuff, but if we all bought it, that's 7 times $25. I don't want to do the math right now. But it's quite a bit of money. It's over $200, right? So, and that was just for a $60 subscription on the family plan. I don't know how I felt, and I still to this day don't really know how I feel about N64 and Genesis, especially Genesis. I don't know how I feel about them being locked behind the expansion pack. But I think they also had to do something to kind of like the carrot on the stick, because right now all we have is the Animal Crossing DLC. So if all we have is the Animal Crossing DLC and we want you to pay for this thing, and that's the only thing you get out of this expansion pack, nobody was going to buy it, which I understand. But with them adding the Animal Crossing DLC, with them adding N64 and Genesis, and finally with the Mario Kart DLC, which I already think is a deal in itself, I can see how the expansion pack can make my money back really quickly, especially if you are a Nintendo person and you buy all the games. That being said, I'm more afraid of them like kind of leaning on, up to this point, a lot of DLC has been free, but I do see them kind of leaning on paid DLC almost entirely as time goes on, in order to entice you to buy the expansion pack.
That could be cool.
Alec, how did you feel?
Again, what am I gonna do?
Well, gas is only getting more expensive, so it only makes sense that Nintendo would get more
mean,
expensive.
To kind of extrapolate on that, I mean, honestly, $50 a year is still not quite as expensive as some of the other subscriptions that I would pay for, including Xbox Live, which is probably one of the more parallel comparisons you can make because it's a gaming subscription. But I think it's really cool. I like the fact that I can play some of the 64 games that I don't actually have anymore on a cartridge. I have a lot of them still, but it's nice to have that little bit more extra convenience to play them. On top of the fact that they were selling the wireless N64 controller.
So they're so good.
They're awesome. Just makes it even more of a sell for me. And on top of that, they also have the Animal Crossing DLC tied in there and the Mario Kart DLC tied in there, which is really cool. The one thing that I fear, I mean, I could say so many different positives about being able to play N64 games more conveniently and the possibilities that it opens up for other systems to be added to an expansion pack sort of tier list eventually. But the one thing I fear eventually is that all of it will meet the same fate, kind of like the 3DS and Wii U eShops. And because of that, I wish I had an option to buy some of these games permanently.
You can.
Other than that, I think it's a fantastic thing. How do you mean?
Well, I mean, you can still buy the expansion packs if you want. Or are you talking about the virtual console?
No, I'm talking about like the
Got it.
64 games,
Yeah.
like virtual console. So
wouldn't it be
nice to have the
nice if, like, at the end of all this, they're like, okay, well, we're gonna shut down the store, but you can download them all for free. Like, they're yours. Like, wouldn't that just
Wouldn't that
be
just be lovely? Well, and
Nintendo, if you're listening,
Gosh.
give us everything for free.
And I know everyone wants to. Yeah, if you're listening, Reggie. Well, Reggie follows you. So.
Reggie's not
2
gonna.
out of 3 chance.
He's just gonna burst down the doors and everyone just lets him because, like, well, he was president.
Wait,
once.
isn't today his birthday? Reggie, happy birthday!
Happy
I think
birthday!
It was yesterday, but
Oh.
the point still stands.
Never
I'm sorry
mind.
you're spending. Well, I'm sorry you're spending it watching my podcast. But happy birthday!
You're 65. Crazy. Or was
He's
it
a young
60
He's a
something?
young lad.
I don't know.
Yeah. Still kicking.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Talking
I
about
just wish there was
kicking
an option
ass
to
and
buy
playing video games, or however he said.
Yeah, I remember that. I watched that live. It was
Yeah.
awesome.
I was like, wow, that's aggressive. This is new Nintendo.
I like this guy. He's edgy.
Everyone gasped.
Yeah, well, look, I love Reggie because, not because he made the Bigfoot pizza, but because he made the Big New Yorker pizza. And that's my favorite pizza from Pizza Hut back in the day. So once I found out he made it, I was like, well, of course he did. Of course he's successful. He made the best pizza ever made.
It's very.
I also didn't know that.
It's just a really big
Interesting
pizza.
trivia.
That's really all it is. It's just a very
It's just
big
a big
pizza.
There's no toppings.
He just
or
had the
shit.
vision.
Yeah. Well, you were supposed to fold the
Big
pizza.
pizza.
Like you were buying it from somebody in New York.
The whole
We don't
pizza?
make a pizza, but make it big. You know?
Well, yeah, he took the Bigfoot pizza, which was just a long pizza, and then he was like, what if I cropped it differently? He just went into Photoshop and did the transform tool and just kind of
What's it
made
called?
it. It's just the Big New Yorker. It's just a really big pizza. That's all it is.
Does it still exist? I've never heard
No,
of it.
no, it's been dead for a long time. Like before 2000,
Maybe
I think.
Reggie's vision wasn't meant to be at the time.
Yeah. Well, no, I think Reggie took it with him. Hey, like
I just
This
Googled
is
it
my
and, like,
intellectual property.
yeah. But like, if you see a picture of Reggie, he has the Bigfoot pizza ad behind him. But I'm like, that's the wrong one. You got to do the Big New Yorker.
Wrong one.
What the heck?
Yeah, dude.
This is actually, I've never seen this.
Well, okay. How old are you again?
You weren't lying. I just did a search for it myself, and wow.
Were you born in the year 2000?
My sister was.
Well,
My
good to
little
know.
sister was. There you go. I just found that image on Google. Feel free to peruse that in your own time.
Yes, peruse. So you know, pizza. Let's put the pizza aside. We've talked about NSO to death. It's not the National Symphony Orchestra anymore. It's Nintendo Switch Online. I think.
Right.
I think eventually, over time, the expansion pack will kind of be worth something. But I think I can understand the divisiveness of it. Speaking of people getting upset about things, let's talk about the Switch Pro. I think this was 2018, I think was the earliest people were talking about. So it's like a year after the system came out.
Yeah. probably.
Yeah. I
Sounds
think it was
on
summer
brand.
2018.
I remember like just looking at tweets at when I was picking up coffee from work, and I was just kind of like, well, that'd be neat. So I guess let's talk about the Switch Pro real quick, because this is something that I think Nintendo does not necessarily want it to be part of the Switch's legacy at this point, whether there are any rumblings or whispers of an actual Switch Pro. But what was the Switch Pro really? There were a lot of different ideas as to what a Switch Pro was supposed to be. Do we remember like the gist of it?
Oh, I remember. I feel very strongly that my predictions at the time were like far ahead of anybody else. I'm being cocky, but I fought tooth and nail
What do
over
you
this
know?
stuff.
Well, got into a lot of internet fights.
Summer, it was 2018. Summer of
so long ago.
2018. These very specific rumors and articles were popping up, specifically saying there will be a Switch Lite and a Switch Pro announced and released this year. That was what the rumor was, essentially.
Yeah.
I don't know if they called it Switch Lite at the time, but like,
Yeah.
a light version and a pro version. And at the time, I was like, this doesn't sound right to me. I don't believe any bit of it. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo's working on something. They're always working on something. Like, that's not a question. They're always going to be working on the next thing. But the rumors for me didn't quite check out. But people were saying, upgraded hardware, upgraded processing power, especially so that they would be able to play current gen games like PS5 and Xbox One games, and all things like this. And in my head, I'm like, that's a different console. You were talking about a new console, and they're not going to release that a year after this one came out, because they're not. If they had that power in the first place, they would have gone with that.
Yeah.
Or they would have released both at the same time, like a light version and a heavier version. But they're not going to do that because this is kind of an issue that came up with the new 3DS, where they're not going to have a console that can play software and then a heavier version of the console that can play different software. It's just silly. It's not a smart business move. Anyway, I said at the time, I don't believe it. And then Switch Lite got announced.
Yeah.
And Switch Lite got announced like a year later. They were like, aha, the rumors are true. The Switch Pro is coming. And I was like, no. So in my opinion, the OLED Switch is the Switch Pro. That's what spawned the rumors. Whoever was getting insider info, in my opinion, that's what they were actually learning about. But the rumors were crazy at the time.
Yeah, I remember. I think the big thing I always remember about the Switch Pro was this idea that it was going to be the don't take it with you system. It was the docked version only. And then that made sense with this light version, which was supposed to be handheld only. No dock, no nothing. So I think when I saw the two rumors, I was like, that is very quick for them to suddenly be like, even just in the rumor mill, for them to kind of suddenly say, all right, we've got a beefed up version of this already. Even the PlayStation 4, when they went from PS4 to PS4 Pro, there were no rumors about this. And I think part of that was The PS4 was selling well. The PS4 was not behind anybody. And so why then suddenly tell people to, well, hold on now, don't buy our system, wait for the the better version of the system later. And eventually we did get a PS4 Pro and people bought into it. But with a Switch Pro rumor already springing up like less than 2 years after the original Switch comes out, I know people have their issues with the Switch. I know there are some people that are like, oh, the fact that it can't play like Breath of the Wild 60 frames all the time, bad system. We have to. That's why I think the Switch Pro was so appealing to a lot of people, was that we can finally have like. I think the thing that really bugged me. Give me an OLED screen, that's fine. When they were saying, all right, all the games are going to be in 4K, I was like, you need to hold on a minute. Because
I don't even think that's possible yet.
especially as the rumors continued, I was like, I hope you understand that unless Nintendo goes back into their previous library of all the games they've released on Switch up to this point, they then have to give it an update in order to run natively in 4K. Half of the Switch's release was not going to have any native 4K support because it was all based on a 1080p system. So like, sure, it's going to look kind of nice. It'll probably look a little better, but you're not going to get true 4K from this thing because it's just going to be upscaled 1080p. That was always the thing that bothered me about a 4K Switch. And then everything that releases after is going to be native 4K. Great, but and to that extension, when the Switch Lite did get announced, I guess that lended some credence to like a possibility of a Switch Pro. But I think ultimately, I guess to my next point, did a Switch Pro appeal to either of you at that point?
Oh, if it was like a possible thing. If there was like something in the back of my mind that was saying like, there's going to be a slightly better version of the Switch. I remember my one concern being, okay, what about games that have already released? And I'm a marketing person, so I'm already thinking, okay, the new 3DS came out, and they didn't have to do a good job of telling people that certain games were only playable because there's only like 3 of them on the new 3DS. But if that happened with the Switch, they'd have to like be very. Either every game would have to be playable on both versions, or it's just this whole thing.
Yeah.
But like, if there was a possibility that we could have a Switch that played in 4K, yeah, I'll take it. Or whatever it is, I'll take it. Processing power is a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just having the ability to port some other, like Kingdom Hearts 3.
And not the cloud version.
Without the cloud version.
Nice.
That'd be great. Not that Square Enix would do it anyway, but
it's just easier to put it on a server for some reason. Whatever. Alec, how do you feel about that? Like, if a Pro was real, especially 2 years after you just bought a Switch, you're dancing with the Switch in the parking lot, and you get a text from somebody that says, "Hold off.
You gotta go buy another one.
Put it back where it came from."
I mean, technical limitations aside, I think if there was ever something that was, I mean, it will be eventually, but if it was anytime soon that would be possible, then yeah, I'd be all for it. That's kind of what you're asking, right? Is if I would buy it?
Yeah, essentially, or like,
I mean,
yeah,
for sure, day one. Main reason being is because I want to play Breath of the Wild in 4K. It'd be pretty cool.
That'd be nice.
Now that Mario Galaxy is on there, I want to play that in 4K, dude. There's just a lot of really pretty Nintendo games on this system already, and having the benefit of playing them in a higher resolution, I don't really know if it's weird because usually I am, but I feel like with the games that I've listed so far, I don't really feel as if I'm as inclined to say that I would enjoy them more if they ran at a higher frame rate versus a higher resolution. Which might sound like blasphemy to some people, but
well, yeah. Are you a
know.
display mode guy or are you a performance mode guy on a PS5 game?
On a PS5 game,
Yeah,
I mean,
because there's
usually
always
I'm a
that
performance mode
toggle.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm usually a performance mode guy.
Okay.
But I don't know. I mean, something with Nintendo games, I want to be able to see them in the highest resolution possible. You know, because a lot of the times they're not really going for realism or anything like that. They have a distinct art style,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
I don't know. I mean, if it were possible, I would be day one ready for a Switch Pro.
Well, the display thing is also a matter of whether you play handheld or on the TV, right? And
Sure.
I play
Mhm.
almost exclusively handheld. So like for me, 4K great, but I honestly probably am gonna look at it like once a month.
Yeah.
Even when I stream on my computer monitor, so I can't really
Get the
take in the
benefit.
sights of 4K. There are a few games that have been definitely not bad, not like chugging, but like Age of Calamity had
Mhm.
some frame rate issues at times. Even Breath of the Wild on very, very rare occasions in like certain malice areas had frame rate issues. So I just think a little bump would be appreciated, but I'm happy with my Switch. So
Yeah, I think
at the end of the day,
and this kind of goes back to our first topic, but like I think yeah, my initial concern was the Switch as a hybrid system is great for utility, and as a person like me who likes to be able to play either way, because I would say I probably spend maybe 75, maybe I probably 60/40. I probably spend 60% of my time handheld and 40% of my time on TV. So I feel like I get the benefit of the system being a hybrid console. And to that effect, to have a hybrid console means that you have to kind of play both sides. And so your games probably aren't going to perform extremely well, especially if you're a third party publisher and you're trying to build games for multiple systems. So like you have your Xbox One, your PS4, and your Nintendo Switch. And then now we have PS5, Xbox Series X. Like the Switch was probably going to play a lot of catch up and was already out the gate destined to be the weaker of the three systems. And so I think with that was my main concern. And then when people were like, wait, how is this happening? Why are we only getting cloud versions on the Switch? I was like, well, this was the thing that I was kind of thinking about back in 2016. The Switch is already going to be the less strong system of the three main consoles out there in the space. And I guess to that point, like I'm not too bad on frame. I'm a display mode person. I like having the 4K, and I don't really care about the dip in frame rate. I'm an NES player, so like once you have more than two sprites on the screen, the whole thing chugs. So I'm used to that. And NES games used to play in 60 frames. Like, you know, all the games up until N64 used to play in 60 frames a second. We never really thought about it, and nobody cared because we were kids. And nowadays, all of a sudden, like as soon as fire is on the screen on Breath of the Wild and it goes down to like 45 frames a second, people get upset. So there is a part of me that's kind of like, I don't care as much about performance, knowing that the game is fun. And I also don't really care too much about 4K, knowing that the system's already been out for so long. 4K is really not going to do them much good. Remember how they tried to get into HD? That didn't do so well for them at the first like 2 years. So for them to have to go back and redo stuff, like it didn't seem appealing to me. I think we have X King in chat. He says, I think something like a Switch Pro will be announced soonish, something similar to the DS or 3DS. I feel like at this point, the main reason, my tinfoil hat theory is that the Switch Pro was going to be a thing, and because of the chip shortages, it couldn't be anymore. I had heard some rumors that a Switch Pro would be announced for Breath of the Wild 2, but I think at this stage in the game, we are probably going to get just a new system, whatever that might be.
I agree. I think that I think the new system, this is not based on anything except my brain, but I think that the new system is likely going to serve as a Switch Pro. I think Nintendo's invested so much and had so much success with the Switch that they're not going to turn away from it when they do announce their new console. And so I'm imagining whatever it is will essentially be the Switch, but
beefier.
Better.
The Super
Yeah.
Switch. Yeah.
You're talking in like comparison to Xbox One, PS4 to
The
PS5,
switcheroo.
X, Series X,
Hmm.
like sort of that.
I feel like that was the Wii U.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Um,
that was a thing that they had trouble with the Wii U
yeah,
marketing wise, as we talked about, and so I think they are maybe a little wary of it, but um, money wise, success wise, they did fine when they went with the new 3DS, which is closer to not being a new console, but
yeah.
it did have games that couldn't be played on the original 3DS. So
I mean, yeah, and I think the new 3DS was more unfortunate because if you were a pure physical games person, I think there was only 3 games that were new Nintendo 3DS only. Um, it
Xenoblade,
was Xenoblade. I think it was like Bit
I
Warriors.
don't
Trip.
remember. Oh yeah,
It was like a Bit
Warriors.
Trip game that did it.
Really? It's
Well,
weird.
Hyrule Warriors can be played on a regular 3DS. You shouldn't,
Oh.
but it can. Oh, Fire Emblem Warriors was new exclusive.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
that's what I
but
meant.
by that point the Switch had been out, and I think I bought the Switch version. Speaking of, so we also have Chris Crawl in the chat who's talking about the OLED. I was talking with him. You can do the same if you watch us on YouTube live. I think honestly the OLED was as good an upgrade for me as, again, I play 6040. I love OLED, and as a Vita apologist, I also am a huge OLED fan. It makes a difference. The original Vita was
Disgusting.
OLED. Do you know how many things Sony did like at a time when it was not profitable to
tried
do
very
so?
hard.
No, I don't. I never owned an OLED.
Well, I mean, I almost consider, like, after playing on the Switch OLED for a while, I almost considered just being like, should I just get an OLED TV? I didn't, but
That's a lot more money,
That's-
isn't it?
Yeah, it's like
expensive.
5 Switch OLEDs in one.
It's a lot. I think it's like easily $200 to $300 for a smaller. Like, I bought a 65-inch regular LCD TV,
Mhm.
for like way less than the cost of an OLED, like a third.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think all that being said, yeah. What do you think was the appealing thing about a Switch Pro to the point where people still want it to this day and still talk about it?
4K. It's a buzzword.
Is a buzzword. I think I do think a part of it is still the idea that game developers are not going to bring the same games to Switch that they'll put on PC and PlayStation and Xbox because the Switch can't handle it. And to an extent that's true. To another extent, it's a different development process.
Mm-hmm.
Porting something like that, you kind of have to rethink how the game works and perhaps give up some things like visual integrity. But I think a big reason that people want an upgrade still is just having the ability to say every game that I can play on my Xbox or on my PlayStation, I can now play portably. It's something that people want for good reason, but people also don't expect PlayStation to get back into that
Yeah.
game, and don't expect Xbox to have the quite as powerful solution that the Switch has, because Xbox does have some stuff actually with Xbox Live, and now Steam Deck is also a contender of some sort, but it's not affordable in the same way that a Switch is. So there's kind of like this little gap still in between what the Switch is now and what the Steam Deck is aspiring to be.
It's also not very practical. It's big and heavy.
Is big, yeah.
I think if the system itself had fewer buttons, the Steam Deck I'm talking about, when I first saw it, I was like, all right, it reminds me of a Game Gear. It looks like a Game Gear. But
It
with
kinda
the
does, yeah.
with the face buttons barely, like, they're almost like teetering over the side of the system, like they're about to fall off. I was like, it's just a chunky boy. You don't need that many inputs, right? Just follow Sony's example and put the touchpads on the back of the system. It's fine.
Yeah.
It worked. You don't have to put them on the side. It's okay. Yeah, I think that is another thing where people had been wanting a Switch Pro for so long that Steam deck, the Steam Deck coming out like fills that capital G gamer void that I think people saw that they wanted from the Switch, but weren't willing to accept the practicality or the, what's the word I'm looking for? The results of such an endeavor. I guess it's like you have, again, it's going to, if Nintendo wanted to do a system that allowed 4K on the TV and 1080p 60 frames on the monitor, then you're essentially asking for a $500 to $600 system, maybe. And I think for Nintendo, that is not okay with them. They will never resort. I mean, they tried with the GameCube. The GameCube was hypothetically the strongest system of that generation. It had the beefier graphics processing. It could do all this, that, and the other thing. And they lost that generation. Like, PS2 trounced them. It was the weaker of the three. I think they really learned their lesson then that, like, let's not try to compete on that ground. Let's try to compete on something else and make an experience that, as a third-party developer, if you want in on this, you need to either take the time to understand how the system works and port something of value to it, or create original content on it so that we have exclusive titles that you can't buy on Xbox or PlayStation. And I think, when you saw Mario and Rabbids, that was a great out-of-the-gate concept, because Ubisoft was like, we want to make a game for the Switch. And we want to take the time to make it exclusive for the Switch so that we can take advantage of it. And I don't think other companies like Squaresoft, they kind of had, especially with games like Octopath Traveler. But then they turned around and were like, well, it's just cheaper to make cloud versions. So we'll just put all of Kingdom Hearts on the cloud and we'll put it on the Switch. Capcom even was like, we're going to do Resident Evil 8 and we're going to put it on cloud. 7. They did it with 7. 7 had the cloud version. So it really, unfortunately, we can talk about how the Switch has bad processing power, or the Switch can't do this or that, and that it's behind or lags behind the competitors. But really, it's about what is a third party willing to do on that system. And it's really all on the publishers to create experiences that work for that system. And I think there again lies why the Switch does really well with indies too. So that's another point to consider, I'd suppose.
Yeah.
Anyway, I like my OLED. I really, really like my OLED.
Me too.
Me 3.
So going into the future, so the Switch is 5 years old. We probably only have maybe a couple of years before we start hearing whatever is next from Nintendo. I probably will be prolonged because of these chip shortages. Do we think that the Switch has succeeded in what it was set out to do? First off,
Yes.
As a
What
concept
was
of like a hybrid console that you can play in 3 different ways, and if you look at that initial trailer, do you think the world has become much like that trailer was hoping it would be?
Well, pandemic didn't help with that, but I mean, like, so I'm still, I don't live a normal life like the people in that trailer.
Well,
but well, like, so when I go to a party in which we were going to be playing video games, which does happen, or at least it did pre-pandemic, we all have a Switch. It's not a matter of like, let me whip out my Switch and let's all play on my one tiny screen. And I don't think that was a practical example, because it's really hard to play with 4 people on a screen this big.
Yeah.
And I actually rarely use like a tabletop. I don't know if it's called tabletop mode. I rarely use my Joy-Cons detached from the screen if I'm playing in handheld mode. So in that sense, I suppose I haven't experienced it in that way, nor would I plan to. If I'm bringing a Switch somewhere, I want it hooked up to a TV, or I want everyone to have their own.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of being like a pretty seamless, portable to at-home experience, yeah, I think it's good. Works for me.
I concur.
All right.
No rooftop parties on my. I have never been to a rooftop party,
Same.
but if I ever get invited, I will bring my Switch.
Let's throw our own for PAX.
There we go. We just got to
Who's
find
got
a rooftop.
roof? Yeah.
I think the main issue, I think where Nintendo was really hopeful about it. Nintendo really wanted tabletop mode to work. I really think so. They wanted people to use it. I just don't think they made very convincing arguments for it. And like you said, I don't necessarily want to have like a 4-player split screen, or really even a 2-player split screen to an extent, on that tiny of a screen. Even the OLED's not that much bigger, and it's not big enough to really make me go, all right, let's do it. And again, like going back to the original Switch, the kickstand was so poor that I really didn't want to use it. I think Super Mario Party tried to let you experience tabletop mode through a tabletop mode in Super Mario Party. But we played it for like 10 minutes, and I have never even touched Super Mario Party ever again since then. So I feel like that was the one feature that Nintendo really wanted us to use, and it just never did. And I think it really just came down to handheld and docked and undocked. But I think overall, my experience with the Switch has been very solid. It works for me personally because I don't want to be tied down. Like if I just want to play games, especially, I shouldn't be saying that during a really long work meeting. The Switch works for me. And then when I'm done, I go put it on the TV and I can just continue to play it. I am able to play it more than my PS5 because I don't have to be here to play it. So, as personally, yeah, I don't know if it did everything and ticked all the boxes Nintendo wanted, but I think it ticked a lot. And I think especially with their really getting into the deep end of the online membership and online competitive esports, they're trying. I think with the esports stuff, they're not quite there yet, but they're trying. Do that.
Right.
Is there anything that you are still looking forward to on the Switch that you have not received yet?
Twilight Princess.
Wind Waker HD. I mean, like game-wise, yeah, Wind Waker HD is like the one that I'm like, Twilight Princess too, but I would say more. I think it's clear at this point we're not getting a virtual console like we had on the Wii U, but I would say more robust library for the Nintendo Switch Online, if that's the route that they've chosen to go. I would like games to be added at a faster pace or in chunks at this point. I just feel like there's still quite a few games that are now going to go away with the Wii U that I wish that we had access to. That's, I think, the main thing, because we've gotten ports of like every Wii U game except for Twilight Princess and Wind Waker
Nintendo
HD
Land.
and Nintendo Land.
What's the
Those
other
are the
game?
3.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm looking at. So one of the other things that probably I skipped over. It's a footnote, but really the Switch did come out with a lot of Wii U ports. I guess the PS4 kind of did the same thing. PS4 was like, hey, we know a lot of people didn't buy PS3, so we're going to release a bunch of remasters on here. And the Switch did the same thing. They were like, well, we want to make sure people play Bayonetta 1 and 2. Unfortunately, Bayonetta, if I remember correctly, doesn't play that well on the Switch. But other than that, I think that was, one place where we were sorely missing. Do I really want a Wind Waker HD and a Twilight Princess HD? Maybe. But that's only because I don't want to dust out my Wii U. Like, I don't want to bring that back out. It is so cumbersome.
Who wants to do that?
Nobody. I was even specific, I was thinking about it because I wanted to go back to the Wii U eShop, and I can't be bothered. So there are a lot of games I'm just not going to own.
Well, it's even almost like the Switch is too good in the sense that, like, yeah, I will rebuy pretty much any game that I want to play on the Switch so that I can have it ready to go when I go to a convention or when I'm traveling for work or whatever. It's just convenient.
I think some parts of the virtual console right now are limited. There are certain things that I wish that they could bring to that. I know that it took them a while to bring in Earthbound. There are I have many choices when it comes to if I want to play Super Mario RPG, I have the cartridge. I have the Super NES Classic. It's just slightly off frame, but it's right there. Like, I have my options, but being able to see a greater library, and especially of games that probably didn't get a chance to shine but were good for their time. That's what emulation really did for a lot of people back then. Like, emulation was free, sure. It was illegal, sure. But the reason why so many people have fonder memories of games that didn't even sell well is because emulation gave them a second chance. And I think this is a big opportunity for publishers or Nintendo or whoever to kind of like really highlight a lot of these old games. Like, it was so cool that we got Shadow Dragon for the first time. It's great that we got Star Fox 2 on NSO, and it's great that we have Earthbound Beginnings rather on NSO as well. So like, this is a great opportunity for them, and I think that overall it's kind of being, well, it's just a tack on. So for now we'll have Jelly Boy, but hopefully we'll get some more titles on NSO in the future, especially with N64. Like Winback, who saw that coming? But I would love to see Space Station Silicon Valley on NSO as well, because that is a huge cult classic.
I want to get Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games on there.
That too. A lot of people were burned by not being able to pick up an analog pocket, so having Game Boy emulation on the Switch would be great too.
Yep.
Alec, did we cover what you were looking forward to, or what you would want to see more? I think you just said Twilight Princess, Wind Waker.
That's the one thing.
Yeah.
Pretty much. For years it was Galaxy, and now it's transitioned over to Zelda. So.
What about we talked about games, but I want those themes of some form. I want themes. Yeah. I want a more robust profile and friend system. I'm saying things that I want. I don't think these are happening. But those are like the things that I really wanted specifically from Nintendo Switch Online. And I thought, especially with like how in depth they went with 3DS themes and Badge Arcade, I was really surprised that we didn't get any of that on the Switch.
At all, yeah.
Yeah. Well, now we got folders.
We got folders finally.
Nice.
You actually reminded me, especially now that they have brought in Booster Pass, and it seems like we're going to be doing DLC instead of a Mario Kart 9. Boy, do they need to fix matchmaking. Boy, do they got to fix that. They really didn't have a good grasp on that back then. And playing their newer games like Mario Party, Superstars, any of the newer sports titles that they released under the Mario branding, they've done it so much better now that going back to something like Mario Kart, I can't just have a room where the three of my friends join in, and then I can so if I'm streaming, I can't really do 4 friends plus myself, and chat fills in the rest of 8 other people from chat. Like, you have to create a tournament room, and
we just experienced this.
Yeah.
I forgot that was your stream.
Yeah. We experienced that, and then I had the same issue 2 weeks later when I started doing the booster courses, and everyone was thrust into different rooms, and I didn't realize how to make that work. And really, you just can't. You can try to change people out every 4 rounds, but that doesn't even work because rooms start at different times. That one, Splatoon has issues. I wish that hopefully with Splatoon 3 they'll fix a lot of that. But especially if Mario Kart 8 is this platform game that they've suddenly developed and are just doing new courses, they really need to go back and fix it, please. Reggie, are you listening?
Reggie can't help us now.
No, Reggie can't help me.
Yeah, you abandoned the pizza, you abandoned us.
Yeah, send me a big New Yorker at least if you're listening.
Yeah.
What do you think the Switch means for Nintendo's future? Do you think that we're going to continue seeing hybrid consoles? Do you think Nintendo's going to go back to this 2-pronged console and handheld effort that they used to do. Like, what do you think Nintendo's future is going to look like from here on?
I feel like they'll
Stays hybrid.
separate again. Yeah, it would be nice from a my pocket point of view, but I feel like Nintendo's never been beholden to what they've succeeded with in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the Wii is a good example of that. It was like kind of out of the blue, did really well, and then they kind of tried to transform into something that was similar but different,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't do fantastic. I think they know it's not a matter of what came before because people are fickle, and so they're just going to do what they want, generally speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they made a lot of money in the past with a separate home and handheld console. So I don't know that there's enough of a precedent for them to remain hybrid forever. But I like hybrid. It's very convenient having only one game library, and it's convenient not just as a consumer, but Nintendo doesn't have to focus their efforts game wise,
Yeah.
marketing wise, planning wise on two things. So who knows? But I wouldn't say it's definitely not going to happen in terms of splitting up again. Because where are they going to go from here? Who knows?
Yeah.
Could be everything. Could be VR. Could be all Labo.
Yeah.
All Labo all the time.
All Labo.
We heard you guys loved Labo. All 20 of you. All of our brand ambassadors loved it.
I got mine.
Yeah, I think the one thing that really impressed me the most about the Switch was the fact that as a hybrid console, it was all focused on one system. And so companies like Game Freak or like even HAL, who would focus their efforts on, we're going to make Kirby was mostly a handheld game. It was very rarely on consoles after 64. It was mostly on the Game Boy Advance and the DS because those game experiences are smaller. And I think that it works well on handhelds because you can charge less and people like it. The handhelds were also more sold towards children, and the consoles were sold more towards older teenager or families rather. So I think with them merging everything together, it was nice because we are in no shortage of games for Nintendo Switch. That has been year over year mostly true. There's been at least one game for somebody. And I think that also came with some growing pains. I think the one company that's faced it the most has been Game Freak, having gone primarily on handheld consoles for like 20 years and now suddenly being like, okay, we have to make a console game. What does that look like? I think that they were probably hammered the most in terms of that transition. But having everything centered onto one system has been very nice, I think, for the consumer, not just from their wallets of buying multiple consoles or not, but also just from having no shortage of games to pick from. And I also kind of see Nintendo never truly lets go of something that they were originally doing. The Joy-Cons are still just a supremely mastered version of their Wii remotes. So they've never let go of the Wii remote. They transfer that into the Joy-Con. Whether or not we'll see that in future systems, again, like Sam said, like Nintendo isn't beholden. I think for me, I would love to see more hybrid systems from them in the future. But I think Nintendo's main question for their next system is going to be, what gameplay element can we add that is different and new to get people to buy this console? How about you, Alec? What would you like to see?
Probably something similar to the DS and 3DS transition. So they kept like a lot of the same core idea, just made it a little better in some ways, made it a little bit more unique
Yeah.
in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
So as much as I like the hybrid thing, I think it would be cool to keep that going forward, at least for like one more generation before the technology catches up, into which it won't really matter
Yeah.
anymore. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what I would want the most. And that's honestly, I feel like pretty simple and pretty tame as far as predictions can go.
The
But
same but better.
yeah, the same, but just a little better. It's really all I
Give
would
me a
want.
Switch Pro.
Yeah, I'm a pretty simple to please in this scenario.
I think one thing that we've talked about before, I don't remember where we've talked about it. I just know that somebody has
Collective
talked
unit,
about
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Is the idea of having the Switch model, except with the Switch acting as a dual screen with whatever larger screen you're playing on, as the Wii U did. Potential there, just
Yeah.
like things like, remember,
Possible.
there is lightning happening all of a sudden. I
I've
had
been
no idea where
hearing
that
some nasty weathers
from.
going on. Yeah.
I had no idea that I just heard thunder out of the blue, and I thought it was something else. Anyway, can you hear that?
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I can hear that.
Okay. Anyway, if I disappear, I'm
I was about
probably
to say,
fine.
yeah. We're on the last question. It's okay.
Okay. But like games like Four Sword Adventure, and I remember just like I had so much fun using. I know this isn't a popular peripheral, but I had so much fun using the GBA link for
Yeah.
GameCube. That idea is super exciting to me. The fact that you have 4 people on a couch with a Switch, and then like the TV is showing something totally different than what you're seeing on your screen. Somewhere between the Switch and the Wii U, I would love for that to be where this evolves into. I don't know how likely that is, but it would be really cool.
I mean, that was always a fun time. I think the GameCube and Game Boy Advance generation was probably the most interesting one to me, even though I grew up with NES, Super NES. Having the connectivity between the two systems, it seems like, again, like that's always what Nintendo had been trying to go for, of let's try to do something between the two systems, not necessarily take, the console experience on the go, but let's connect the handheld and the system together. That'd be pretty fun to see if they decide to go and split in separate directions again.
Yeah. What if?
What if?
now,
What if?
now I'm thinking about it. What if like we all keep our Switches, we're all good, and the new console is like a new whatever it's a box, some
Yeah,
kind of a
yeah.
box, and they're like, all right, and now your controllers, like here you can use the regular controller, or you could use your Switch as a controller.
As a player, yeah.
Ooh. Oh.
See, again, I would like to remind you that Sony did that years ago between the Vita and the PlayStation 4.
Yeah, but when Nintendo does
But when
it,
Nintendo, it'll sell, yeah.
well, I mean, one of the big benefits is that the Switch has already had crazy amount of adoption, so
So you already have
it's-
it.
Yeah, a lot of people like the idea that they can continue getting a use out of it down the line.
At least we wouldn't feel like cheated out of another $200, $300.
I would spend it anyway. But
Yeah. I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. That's such an answer, right? But yeah, I personally, I would love to see this hybrid model continue, but it'll really just depend on, unfortunately or fortunately, what Nintendo wants to do or what their next concept is. I think whatever it is, it'll probably have nothing to do with the hybrid model, and it will focus on whatever new gameplay functionality they can bring, like VR again, to the table. And maybe they never release another handheld ever again, or they do with the Game Boy Ultra 64. There you go. You heard it right here.
I
I'd
will
buy
say
it.
this as the last parting thoughts for
Yeah.
this is that if anything, I feel like the future of video games is shifting more and more to mobile than it is to stationary at your desk or
Yeah.
at your TV.
yeah,
Steam Deck, you've got Switch. I mean, you've got cloud gaming, which is a huge thing for Xbox Game Pass, and a couple of other functionalities built in there. To the point
got
where it's
mobile.
yeah, to
Y'all
the
have
point where it's
phones,
like a
right?
thing that people hold against PlayStation for not implementing themselves really that well either. So, if anything, cloud and mobile gaming, I feel like is definitely more of the direction that the entire industry as a whole is probably going to be shifting more towards, because it's convenient, and it's easier to capture my attention when it's convenient, right? Because you said
Yeah.
it earlier, you play your
Mhm.
Switch way more because you just can,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So I think if anything, it'll be shifting more and more towards that. Although I like having the option to do either. So
It
that's
really is
my
just a matter of
preference
convenience.
there.
Yeah. It gives us giving the consumer the illusion of choice is always an excellent selling point.
The illusion.
All right, well that is it. We'll see what happens over the next several years. We'll see how long the Switch even lasts. Maybe
Yeah.
we'll be back doing the 10th anniversary of the Switch. You never know. It's been
Yeah,
a
we'll be
very
here in
weird
another 5
economic,
years.
couple of years. But thank you both for joining me here on this. Let's go around the table and see where we can find you and what you are up to. Alec, we will start with you.
Yes, my name is Alec, aka AlecandStuff. I'm usually the guy with blue hair that yells at video games for a living.
Just
but
imagine the blue for right now.
You can
I got
I
a
see
haircut
it.
today,
I see
so
it.
they cut off all. It looked like they gave Cookie Monster a haircut or something. But it's all gone at the moment. But it's usually blue, and you could find me on Twitter, Twitch, and all the other places under AlecandStuff. Sometimes with more F's than usual because people steal my name. So if you search for it, you'll
That's
find
the
me
way.
eventually. Yeah.
And Sam, where can we find you?
I'm Sam. I also go by NintendoFanGirl, mostly on YouTube, Twitter. I guess just if you Google Nintendo Fangirl, you'll find stuff. My exciting thing right now is I'm going to try and do a traditional styled Let's Play for the first time with the new
Ooh,
Kirby game. I'm pretty excited.
very
Like
nice.
recorded segments.
Recorded segments. I'm going to stream
Wow.
it separate, 2 different game files. I'm going to stream it. I'm going to do an actual recorded segment Let's Play, which I've never done before, so I'm pretty hype.
Blast from the past. I remember
Yeah.
watching those kinds of formats back in the day.
What's
Bringing
up,
it back.
YouTube? And then you can, if you're somehow stumbled onto this stream, you can find me right here on YouTube, LaughingBoyLP. You can find me over on twitter.com/LaughingBoyLP for more updates about the channel. And I just made Twitch affiliate, so you can find me over on twitch.tv/LaughingBoyLP. I mostly do once a week online multiplayer with online friends, such as these two fine young people. You can also, and then I do game clearing and stuff like that. So, traditional Twitch kind of stuff. But go ahead and give me a like, subscribe, follow, whatever you want to do. If you like DialogBOX, there are definitely more episodes that you can find on this channel. These two have been on previous episodes before. And you can also listen to, if you don't want to watch, if you don't look, I don't like looking at myself in the mirror. So if you don't like looking at me, you can always listen to my sultry radio-like voice over on Spotify. You can just search for DialogBOX, all one word, same as it's spelled on the title here. So you can always listen to that when you're in the car, while you're at a rooftop party maybe, and you just don't want to talk to anybody. Just pop in those earbuds. All right?
No earbuds. You take over the aux cable and play it for everyone.
Yeah, we'll be your party.
Hi,
And
Diane.
and if you're watching on or listening on Spotify and you want to join in on the conversation, you can always just be here when we go live on youtube.com, and you can enter in chat and we can talk and have a little back and forth. So excellent to see you guys here. Excellent to see everyone in chat, whether you were listening in or getting into the conversation and voting on. I had a couple polls there. I thank you. And until next time, good night. Good luck. Go play Kirby. That just came out yesterday.
Kirby time.
I haven't even started it yet.
Me
Dangaroo.
either.